Pat, many of you will know Pat Burke, who was a councillor and is prominent local Labour Party MD in Falkirk. I'm very conscious that some of you are from the Falkirk Labour Party, so welcome all of you, and let me now just pass over to Pat. Thanks, Pat.
There's something about Ed Ball that's a bit different from the rest of his contestants for the leadership, and it's simply something that's very, very important to me. Ed has been a member of the Labour trade union and cooperative movement for all his political life, and not just during this election, and for me that ticks a few valuable boxes. Camelon Labour Party branch would like to present this cheque for £500 to Ed Ball's campaign. So they're making some declaration of intent as well.
I've just been given a blank cheque, which has never happened before. The Labour Party do, so I assume somebody's going to fill that in. That makes it a bit unusual. That's never happened to me before. I'll put it in my pocket. Very good to be here with Eric Joyce. He's been supporting me from the beginning, and I really appreciate that. This is a really important and difficult time for the Labour Party, because we've got to choose a new Labour Party leader, having gone out of power, having been in government for 13 years. I don't know whether you know this in Falkirk, in Sheffield, which is about 30 minutes from my constituency in Yorkshire, Nick Clegg, the candidate in Sheffield, he put on his election leaflets, vote Liberal Democrat or you'll get a Tory government. And he also put on his leaflets, stop the Tory VAT bombshell. I was on the TV about 4 or 5 months ago, just before the election, with Vince Cable, and I was saying to Vince Cable, look, we agree on this, that and the other, and he was saying, look, he said, there's one thing, he said, I agree with Ed Balls on. He said, to cut public spending this year by billions of pounds would be a terrible and historic mistake, which would cost jobs and jeopardise the recession. It would be the wrong thing to do. And then he's in the cabinet 2 months later, and that's exactly what the Conservatives and Liberals are doing. It is a shocking thing. I mean, to choose to want power is okay in politics, because we want power to influence. To ditch your principles for power is a bad thing in politics. To do it on the backs of the poor and the pensioner and the unemployed, I think is a complete disgrace. There is a historic choice we're making at the moment. You know, in 1980, Margaret Thatcher said there is no alternative but to get the deficit down, and we've got to cut spending, and we've got to cut spending now. And we went through in the 1980s 5 years of rising youth unemployment, 3 million manufacturing jobs destroyed just in a couple of years, but also, you know, a society which was not at ease with itself again for many, many years afterwards. To be honest, the scars of the 1980s still live with a generation of parents today. The other person though, and in some ways I think this is why the Labour Party feels a bit strongly about this, before Margaret Thatcher, the previous person to say there's no alternative, got to cut public spending, I'm really sorry, it's going to be hard, but we've got to do it. It was communicated in a message to Labour Party members in 1931 by Ramsay MacDonald. Ramsay MacDonald said, there's no choice. I'm sorry, Labour Party, you've got to cut public spending now. And the Labour Party wouldn't support it. Actually, at that time, the Liberals wouldn't support it. Lloyd George and Keynes said it's the wrong thing to do. Ramsay MacDonald went into coalition with the Conservatives, the national government. They cut spending hard, and what happened? Unemployment rising for years, the deficit getting worse, not getting better, the depression of the 1930s, and all the politics which happened as a result of that. We are at a third point where we're making a choice. It's a historic choice. Do you learn from history, or do you repeat the mistakes of history? My fear is the Conservatives and the Liberals, with I'm afraid the support of some of our European partners, are repeating the mistakes of the 20th century. And we have an opportunity as a Labour Party to oppose this in Parliament and nationally and internationally. It's really important we do, because if not, this will be a decade of rising unemployment, of young people's hopes blighted, of people once again seeing poverty in communities going up, the infrastructure we need being neglected. If as a political party you lose touch with the people you're there to represent, if you lose touch and you go out of power, And we can't do the job which we're supposed to do. We can't fight for social justice properly. You can't deliver the better public services and the proper rights at work from opposition. And there's important lessons we've got to learn. As you read sometimes in the Conservative press, Labour lost touch with aspirational Middle England. It wasn't that we lost touch simply with the southern voter. The fact is that whether you went to Portsmouth or to the Medway towns in Kent or to Stevenage or to Yorkshire or the mill towns of the northwest, the people who didn't come out to vote for us were people on lower and middle incomes who said, I've always been Labour and I don't really think you're on our side at the minute. And I think you're all the same. And why aren't you standing up for us? And the problem we had in the election campaign, I'm afraid, was we didn't have good enough answers on some of these issues. I don't know whether you saw this on the doorstep. Certainly was the case in English constituencies. If you say to somebody, what's the biggest issue? And they say, well, there's not enough houses. And you say, I know, but we're building more houses. We have been for the last couple of years. And they say, but my daughter's been waiting 2 years. There isn't really any answer to that. You can't, as a politician, say, I know, but it's going to happen, or we're putting the money in. The fact is, we didn't build enough houses early on in the decade. We paid a really big price for that. The same thing happened, I'm afraid, on university finance, certainly in the English seats. I think you get a bit of this in Scotland as well, but not quite the same as you get in England, where people would say, we didn't go to university, and we want our kids to go to university, but you're saying they've got to take out a big loan up front to pay tuition fees, and I can't have our kids burdened by debt, but I can't save enough money ourselves to pay for it for them. Why are you making it harder for people like us to go to university? And we didn't have a good enough answer to that as well. You can't have a Labour Party in which policy decisions are made at the centre and then communicated out to the membership. You can't have a policy discussion where the leadership says, we've written the document and now we've come to consult you, but please don't tell us you've got any disagreements with it because it's already been written. That's no way to consult. I'm afraid it's true. If we had a better and stronger and more confident and trusting relationship between the party membership, the trade union membership and the leadership at an earlier stage in the decade, we'd have heard those voices on housing and on tuition fees, on the privatisation of public services, on making sure we had proper protections in the workplace, and people didn't hear. And the reason I decided to stand was because I wanted to make sure we focused the debate on the economy, we took the fight to the Conservatives and the Liberals, but also to say that, you know, you don't have to choose between my head says vote for this person because they're more electable in the south, my heart says vote for that person because they talk the language of Labour. We need a candidate who can be head and heart for Labour, somebody who can be radical and credible in putting a pitch, and I think I can do that, and that's why I decided to put myself forward. My proudest moment, to be honest, in my time as a politician was being on Any Questions a couple of months before the general election. And I was on with William Hague. And William Hague, it was the few days before the first BA Unite strike. And everybody was very wound up about the strike. And William Hague said, I should condemn the strike. And I said, I refuse to condemn the strike. I don't want to strike, nobody does. But I'm not going to condemn Unite, I'm not going to condemn the strike, because both sides have got to get this sorted out. And William Hague said to me, the reason you won't condemn the strike is because you're financed by Unite money, and that's why you won't condemn the strike action. And I looked at him, and I don't like William Hague that much, to be honest. I looked at him and I said, to be honest, William, I'd rather be financed by the voluntary contributions of Unite members in my constituency by tax-avoiding millionaire Belize money from Lord Ashcroft, and that's a personal choice. We have to make sure that we can win, not just for the party, but also for the country, not just in safe seats, but just in marginal seats. Only then can we get Labour back to power. Only then can we take on what I think is a despicable Tory Liberal coalition. Only then can we carry on that 100+ years of Labour tradition. And the question you've got to decide in the next couple of weeks is, who do you think is the leader who is best able to fight the coalition, to carry on that tradition, but also win the marginal seats and get us back to power? I'm standing because I think I can do that. I want to give you a choice, and I hope that you